Welcome to the Ghastly Journal, where the darkest corners of history reveal their secrets. Tonight, we journey to the remote mountains of Mexico, to the year 1872, where the terrible past of Santa Maria del Dolor Orphanage still whispers from its walls. Across the cobblestone streets of San Cristobal, a small village nestled in the Sierra Madre Mountains, the setting sun casts long shadows. Thick with the scent of copal incense and burning candles, the air hangs over villagers hurrying to finish their daily tasks before nightfall. High above the village, perched on a cliff that overlooks the valley, stands the imposing silhouette of Santa Maria del Dolor, St. Mary of Sorrow. An orphanage operated by the Sisters of Divine Mercy. Behind its weathered stone walls and iron gates, this place was home to 43 orphaned girls. Most were daughters of those who had perished in the recent cholera epidemic that swept through the region, claiming hundreds of lives. Others had been abandoned by families too poor to feed another mouth. All of them were now under the care of Mother Superior Agatha and her 5 nuns. Among these sisters was Sister Isabella Valdez, who had arrived at Santa Maria in the winter of 1871. Unlike the other nuns, Sister Isabella came with a mysterious past. Some said she had studied medicine in France under renowned surgeons before taking her vows. Others whispered that she had fled from Spain after a scandal involving forbidden medical experiments. Whatever the truth, Sister Isabella kept to herself, often seen walking the grounds alone at dusk, collecting herbs and plants that grew wild on the mountainside. Assigned to the orphanage small infirmary was Sister Isabella. There she treated the girls' various ailments with an expertise that impressed even the local physician, Dr. Martinez, who visited once a month from the village below. Her remedies seemed miraculous. Fevers that would have claimed young lives elsewhere were cured overnight. Injuries that should have festered healed cleanly under her care. She has the hands of an angel, Mother Superior Agatha would say, making the sign of the cross. But angels don't require locks on infirmary doors. Angels don't need to conceal instruments behind false walls, and angels certainly don't perform surgeries in the dead of night. Our story begins on the feast day of San Antonio in June 1872, when 12-year-old Lucia Mendoza first noticed something strange about Sister Isabella. Lucia was one of the oldest girls at Santa Maria. Sharp-witted and observant, she had taken it upon herself to watch over the younger orphans, particularly her small friend Elena, who suffered from a weak heart. On this particular evening, as the girls prepared for bed in their dormitory, Lucia noticed Sister Isabella entering the infirmary carrying something wrapped in a cloth. Curious, she crept from her bed and followed the nun, careful to stay in the shadows of the dimly lit corridor. Through a crack in the infirmary door, Lucia watched as Sister Isabella unwrapped the bundle, revealing several strange metal instruments that gleamed in the candlelight. The nun arranged them carefully on a tray before pulling a leather-bound journal from beneath a loose floorboard. She began writing feverishly, occasionally glancing at a small object that Lucia couldn't quite see. Lucia would have remained there longer, but the sound of approaching footsteps forced her to retreat to her bed. The next morning, when she mustered the courage to ask Sister Isabella about what she had seen, the nun's face darkened. "The medicines I prepare require special tools, child. It is nothing for you to concern yourself with. Now I believe you have chores to attend to." That same afternoon, Elena collapsed while hanging laundry in the courtyard. Her lips turned blue as she gasped for breath, clutching at her chest. Sister Isabella was summoned immediately. She carried the frail girl to the infirmary and closed the door, refusing to allow anyone else inside, not even Mother Superior Agatha. "I need complete silence and concentration," Sister Isabella insisted. "The child's condition is grave." Hours passed. The other girls gathered in the chapel to pray for Elena's recovery. Their whispered Hail Marys filled the sacred space. Lucia, however, couldn't shake the memory of those strange instruments. When she should have been praying, she was wondering what Sister Isabella was doing to her friend behind those locked doors. It was nearly midnight when Sister Isabella emerged from the infirmary, her white habit stained with small speckles of blood. "The child will live," she announced to Mother Superior Agatha. "God has guided my hands tonight." When Lucia was finally permitted to visit Elena the next day, she found her friend pale but alive, sleeping peacefully in the infirmary bed. A thick bandage was wrapped around Elena's chest, partially visible beneath her nightgown. "What did she do to you?" Lucia whispered, though Elena couldn't hear her through her medicine-induced slumber. Lifting the edge of the nightgown slightly, Lucia gasped at what she saw. A thin, precise incision running between Elena's ribs, meticulously stitched closed with thread finer than any sewing Lucia had ever seen. This was no ordinary treatment for a weak heart. This was surgery. In 1872 Mexico, surgery was a desperate measure reserved for battlefield injuries and life-threatening conditions. It was performed by physicians, not nuns, and certainly not in remote orphanages without proper medical facilities. Moreover, few patients survived such procedures due to infection and blood loss. Yet, Elena seemed to be recovering. Over the next weeks, Elena's strength returned. The blue tinge left her lips, and she could climb the orphanage steep staircases without gasping for breath. Whatever Sister Isabella had done appeared to have worked a miracle, but it was just the beginning. As summer heat gave way to autumn chill, more girls began to visit the infirmary with various complaints. 9-year-old Gabriella, who had suffered from terrible headaches since infancy, was kept overnight. 7-year-old twins, Maria and Mariana, both born with slightly misaligned eyes, spent 3 nights under Sister Isabella's care. 6-year-old Consuela, whose seizures had frightened the other children, disappeared into the infirmary for nearly a week. Each emerged changed. Gabriella no longer held her head in pain. The twins' eyes gazed straight ahead. Consuela's body no longer betrayed her with sudden convulsions, and each girl bore hidden scars that only became visible during bath time, when Lucia, helping the younger ones wash, caught glimpses of the nuns' handiwork. Small, precise incisions in the most unusual places, behind ears, along hairlines, across abdomens. Lucia began keeping count. By November 1872, 15 girls had spent nights in the infirmary and returned with hidden improvements and hidden scars. When she tried to question the girls about what happened during their stay with Sister Isabella, they would only shake their heads, eyes downcast. "I was asleep," they would say. "Sister gave me a special tea, and I remember nothing until morning." But occasionally one would whisper something more disturbing. "I dreamed of angels holding me down," Gabriella confided. "Their hands were cold like metal." "I saw Sister Isabella standing over me," said Mariana. "But she wore a mask like a bird's beak." Lucia knew such a mask from stories about the plague doctors of Europe who believed the beaked masks filled with herbs would protect them from miasmatic air. But why would a nun in an orphanage need such a thing? Determined to uncover the truth, Lucia began staying awake at night, watching the infirmary from a window alcove that overlooked the courtyard. For several nights, nothing unusual occurred. Then, on the eve of the Feast of All Souls, Lucia observed Mother Superior Agatha and Sister Isabella carrying something heavy into the infirmary. It appeared to be a wooden crate, the kind used to transport goods from the city. The next day, a new piece of equipment stood in the infirmary. A contraption of metal and leather that Sister Isabella referred to as a therapeutic bed. It resembled an ordinary bed frame, but with leather straps attached to various points and a system of cranks at one end. For correcting spinal deformities, Sister Isabella explained when Dr. Martinez inquired during his monthly visit. The latest innovation from European hospitals. Dr. Martinez seemed skeptical but didn't press further. As the only physician serving several remote villages, he had little time to investigate unorthodox treatments, especially when the children appeared to be thriving under Sister Isabella's care. After the doctor's departure, Lucia overheard a conversation between Sister Isabella and Mother Superior Agatha that made her blood run cold. "The equipment has arrived just in time," Sister Isabella said. "There are at least 20 more girls here who require intervention." "Are you certain this is God's will, Sister?" Mother Superior's voice trembled slightly. "These procedures, they go beyond traditional medicine." "I have been called to this work, Mother Superior," Sister Isabella replied firmly. "These children have been abandoned by the world. Who will help them if not us? Their deformities and ailments will condemn them to lives of suffering and rejection. I can give them normality. And the risks are minimal with my techniques. I have refined my methods considerably since Vienna. And the pain they endure. They will not remember it. The tincture I administer ensures they sleep deeply through the procedures. A small suffering for a lifetime of improvement. Mother Superior sighed heavily. Very well, but we must maintain absolute secrecy. If the bishop were to learn of this, he will see only the results. Healthier children, more likely to be adopted into good families. That night, Lucia couldn't sleep. Vienna. Procedures. Tinctures. The conversation confirmed her suspicions. Sister Isabella was performing surgeries on the orphans with Mother Superior's reluctant blessing. But why? Was it truly to help them as Sister Isabella claimed? Or was there something more sinister behind these midnight operations? Lucia's opportunity to investigate came sooner than expected. The next morning, Sister Isabella informed her that Elena needed another treatment for her heart condition. The initial procedure was successful, Sister Isabella explained, but a second intervention is necessary to ensure complete recovery. Will it hurt her? Lucia asked, unable to mask her concern. Sister Isabella's expression softened momentarily. She will feel nothing, child. I promise you that. As Elena was escorted to the infirmary that afternoon, Lucia formulated a plan. That evening, after the girls had been sent to bed and the nuns had retired to their quarters for evening prayers, Lucia slipped out of the dormitory. She had discovered a small ventilation grate near the ceiling of the infirmary that connected to a storage closet. By climbing the shelves in the closet, she could peer through the grate and witness whatever occurred in the infirmary below. The storage closet was dark and musty, filled with linens and medical supplies. Lucia climbed carefully, positioning herself near the grate. Through the metal slats, she could see the infirmary bathed in the glow of several oil lamps. Far more illumination than would be typical for night time. Elena lay unconscious on the therapeutic bed, leather straps securing her arms and legs. Sister Isabella entered, but she was transformed. Gone was the humble nun's habit, replaced by a long apron over a simple dress. Her hair, normally hidden beneath her wimple, was tightly bound beneath a cloth cap. Most disturbing was the mask, just as Mariana had described, a beaked apparatus that covered the upper portion of her face. Sister Isabella was not alone. Mother Superior Agatha accompanied her along with Sister Maria, the youngest of the nuns at Santa Maria. Both wore similar aprons, though neither wore the beaked mask. The tincture has taken effect, Sister Isabella said, her voice slightly muffled behind the mask. She will remain unconscious throughout the procedure. From a cabinet, she retrieved the leather case Lucia had glimpsed months earlier. Opened on a small table, it revealed dozens of instruments, scalpels, forceps, needles, and other tools Lucia couldn't identify. Sister Maria, you will assist me directly tonight, Sister Isabella instructed. It is time you learn these techniques. Mother Superior will monitor the child's breathing. What followed was both fascinating and horrifying. With practiced precision, Sister Isabella cut along the previous scar on Elena's chest. She worked methodically, occasionally requesting instruments from Sister Maria, who handed them over with trembling hands. Observe the heart, Sister Isabella said, using a small metal device to hold the incision open wider. The valve I repaired in the previous surgery has maintained its function, but there is still narrowing of this chamber. Tonight, we will address that. Lucia couldn't see exactly what Sister Isabella was doing, but she could hear her explaining each step to Sister Maria, who appeared increasingly uncomfortable. In Vienna, we would simply replace the damaged valve with one from a cadaver, Sister Isabella commented. But here, we must repair what God has provided. The technique I've developed uses a portion of the patient's own pericardium to create a functioning valve. This is extraordinary, Sister Maria whispered. But is it not against God's will to interfere with His creation in such a manner? Sister Isabella's hands never paused in their work as she replied. God gave us minds capable of understanding His creation and hands capable of healing it. Would the Lord provide such gifts if He did not intend for us to use them? For nearly 3 hours, Lucia watched as Sister Isabella operated on her friend's heart, an organ no one should be able to touch without causing death. Yet, Elena's chest continued to rise and fall with shallow breaths. Finally, Sister Isabella began closing the incision with tiny, perfect stitches. The procedure is complete. With this correction, her heart should function normally for many years to come. And she will remember nothing. Mother Superior Agatha asked. Only a dream, perhaps. The mind protects itself from such trauma. Sister Isabella removed her mask, revealing a face shining with triumph. She is the 17th success. Soon all the children in our care will be perfected. Perfected? The word echoed in Lucia's mind as she carefully climbed down from her perch and crept back to the dormitory. Was that how Sister Isabella viewed them? As imperfect beings requiring correction? And what did she mean by all the children? There were 43 orphans at Santa Maria del Diolea. Did Sister Isabella plan surgeries for every one of them? In the days that followed, Elena once again recovered with remarkable speed. Her lips remained pink even during exertion, and she reported feeling stronger than ever before. Whatever Sister Isabella had done appeared successful, but Lucia couldn't forget what she had witnessed, or Sister Isabella's disturbing choice of words. Perfected. As if the orphans were flawed creations requiring her intervention, Lucia began observing Sister Isabella more closely. She noticed how the nun studied the girls during meals and recreation, her gaze lingering on those with visible differences: Isabella's slight limp, Francisca's recurring tremor, Sophia's misshapen ear. She kept notes in her leather journal, writing when she thought no one was watching. More troubling still was Lucia's discovery of a hidden room adjacent to the infirmary. While searching for a missing hairbrush, she noticed a draft coming from what appeared to be a solid wall. Careful inspection revealed a concealed door left slightly ajar. Inside, Lucia found shelves lined with jars containing specimens preserved in cloudy liquid, objects that appeared to be removed tissues and organs, each meticulously labeled with dates and names. With horror, Lucia recognized the names of her fellow orphans. On another shelf stood a row of leather-bound journals, each filled with Sister Isabella's precise handwriting. Stealing one of the newer volumes, Lucia retreated to a secluded corner of the orphanage gardens to examine its contents. The journal documented each procedure in clinical detail: diagnosis, techniques, outcomes. But interspersed among these medical notes were passages that revealed Sister Isabella's true motivations. Subject 12, Gabriella, has responded well to the cerebral procedure. Pressure on the visual center has been relieved, eliminating her headaches. More significantly, her intellectual capacity appears enhanced. She completed the arithmetic exercises in half the usual time today. This supports my theory that targeted surgical intervention can not only correct deficiencies, but improve natural capacities. Another entry read, the twins, subjects 14 and 15, present a unique opportunity to test different approaches on identical physiologies. I corrected subject 14's ocular misalignment using the traditional technique while employing my experimental method on subject 15. The latter shows superior results with potential enhancement of peripheral vision beyond normal parameters. The most disturbing passage appeared near the journal's end. Mother Superior grows increasingly concerned about the scope of my work, but she cannot deny the results. These children, abandoned, unwanted, imperfect, are being transformed into superior specimens. Some may question my methods, but future generations will recognize this orphanage as the birthplace of a new understanding of human potential. When my work is complete, these 43 girls will represent the future of medical science. Living proof that the human body can be not merely healed, but perfected through surgical intervention. Lucia closed the journal, her hands trembling. Sister Isabella wasn't simply treating ailments. She was using the orphans as subjects in a series of experiments aimed at perfecting them according to her own disturbing vision. And she planned to operate on every single girl at Santa Maria del Diolea, including Lucia herself. The realization came with a chill that penetrated to her bones. Unlike many of the other girls, Lucia had no visible abnormalities or chronic conditions. She had never required treatment in the infirmary. Yet, according to Sister Isabella's journal, she was scheduled for a procedure the following week. Subject 23, Lucia, presents no obvious physical deficiencies, but her persistent questioning and oppositional tendencies suggest irregularities in the prefrontal region. A minor procedure to modify these tendencies would render her more compliant and receptive to instruction, qualities that would significantly improve her adoption prospects. Sister Isabella planned to operate on Lucia's brain to make her more obedient. That night, as the orphanage fell silent, Lucia made a difficult decision. She had to find help. But who would believe a 12-year-old orphan's accusations against a nun known throughout the village for her miraculous healing abilities? The local authorities deferred to the church in all matters concerning the orphanage. Dr. Martinez visited too infrequently to intervene in time. There was only one option. Lucia would have to escape Santa Maria del Dolor and take evidence of Sister Isabella's experiments to someone with the power to stop her. The opportunity came 2 nights later when a violent thunderstorm swept through the mountains. As rain lashed against the windows and thunder shook the stone walls of the orphanage, Lucia gathered her meager possessions along with Sister Isabella's journal and a small specimen jar containing what the label identified as cardiac tissue from Subject 8. The storm provided perfect cover for her escape. The nuns were occupied with calming the younger children frightened by the thunder, and the howling wind masked the sound of Lucia's footsteps as she crept through the dark corridors toward the kitchen, which had an exterior door used for bringing in supplies. As Lucia reached the kitchen, however, she heard voices. Sister Isabella and Sister Maria engaged in a heated discussion. "I cannot continue to assist you in this work," Sister Maria was saying, her voice quavering. "What we are doing, it violates everything I believe about God's will." "You've seen the results," Sister Isabella replied calmly. "Children who would have lived lives of pain and limitation now thrive. Is that not God's work? Not like this. These surgeries, these experiments, the risks you take with these innocent lives. Minimal risks, carefully calculated. And the ones who didn't survive. What of Juanita and Teresa? You told Mother Superior they died of fever. But I know the truth." Lucia froze. 2 girls had died. She had assumed the surgeries were dangerous. But to hear confirmation that Sister Isabella had already lost patients and concealed those deaths was chilling. "Unfortunate failures that led to important refinements in my techniques," Sister Isabella said dismissively. "Their sacrifices ensured the success of subsequent procedures. I cannot be part of this any longer," Sister Maria insisted. "Tomorrow I will speak with Mother Superior. If she will not end these experiments, I will take my concerns to Bishop Montoya during his visit next month." There was a long silence during which Lucia could hear only the pounding of rain on the roof and the racing of her own heart. "I see," Sister Isabella finally said, her voice now cold and precise. "That would be most unfortunate, Sister Maria. Most unfortunate indeed." The change in Sister Isabella's tone made Lucia shiver. She pressed herself against the wall beside the kitchen door, barely daring to breathe as the conversation continued. "What do you mean?" Sister Maria asked, uncertainty creeping into her voice. "Simply that your crisis of conscience comes at a most inopportune time. We are at a critical stage in our work here." "Our work?" "No, Sister Isabella, this is your work, your obsession. It has nothing to do with our calling as brides of Christ." "You speak of calling," Sister Isabella said softly. "I was called to medicine long before I was called to the church. Do you know what I witnessed in the hospitals of Europe? Brilliant minds constrained by superstition and prejudice. Male physicians who refuse to consider innovations proposed by women. Patients suffering needlessly because tradition outweighed reason." "That doesn't justify, it justifies everything," Sister Isabella interrupted, her voice suddenly fierce. "Here in this remote place, I am free to pursue my research without interference. These children, unwanted, forgotten by society, are being transformed into something remarkable. Some may not survive the process, but those who do will demonstrate the possibilities of surgical enhancement beyond mere treatment of disease." "Enhancement?" Sister Maria gasped. "You speak as if you are creating something unnatural." "I am improving upon nature, Sister. Is that not what all medicine attempts to do? There are boundaries we should not cross. Boundaries set by men who fear progress." Sister Isabella's voice hardened. I had hoped you would understand the importance of this work, but I see now that was a miscalculation on my part. Lucia heard movement within the kitchen and shrank further into the shadows. Through the partially open door, she saw Sister Isabella open a cabinet and remove a small brown bottle. You seem agitated, Sister Maria. Perhaps a calming tea would help clear your thoughts. We can continue this discussion in the morning after you've had time to reflect. I don't want tea, Sister Maria said wearily. My mind is made up. I insist, Sister Isabella replied, and there was something in her tone that brooked no argument. Sit, please. Lucia watched as Sister Isabella prepared 2 cups, her back to Sister Maria. With growing horror, Lucia observed her adding extra drops from the brown bottle to one of the cups before bringing them to the table. Chamomile with honey, Sister Isabella said, placing the cups down. Mother Superior's favorite remedy for troubled thoughts. Sister Maria hesitated, then reluctantly took a sip. Sister Isabella smiled and raised her own cup in response. They sat in uncomfortable silence as Sister Maria continued to drink. After several minutes, the young nun's eyelids began to droop. I feel strange, she murmured, her words slurring slightly. What was in that tea? Just a stronger dose of the same tincture I give our surgical patients, Sister Isabella replied, watching dispassionately as Sister Maria struggled to remain upright. You'll sleep deeply until morning. By then, I will have determined how best to address your concerns. Sister Maria tried to stand but collapsed back into her chair, her movements uncoordinated. You've poisoned me. Not poisoned, dear sister. Merely sedated, although the distinction matters little to the unconscious mind. As Sister Maria slumped forward onto the table, Sister Isabella calmly collected both teacups and washed them in the basin. Then, with surprising strength, she lifted the unconscious nun and carried her from the kitchen. Lucia remained frozen in place, barely breathing, until the sound of Sister Isabella's footsteps faded completely. Then, fighting her terror, she slipped into the kitchen and through the exterior door into the raging storm. Rain immediately soaked through her thin nightdress as she ran across the orphanage grounds toward the gate. The iron gates were locked at night, but Lucia had discovered months earlier that a section of the perimeter wall had crumbled enough to create a narrow gap, just wide enough for a slender girl to squeeze through. Lightning illuminated her path in brilliant flashes as she reached the wall and began working her way through the opening. The rough stones tore at her skin and clothing, but fear drove her forward until she tumbled onto the muddy path on the other side. Freedom, but also danger. The mountain path to the village was treacherous even in daylight. In a storm, at night, it could be deadly. Still, Lucia began the descent, clutching Sister Isabella's journal inside her dress to keep it as dry as possible. The journey was a nightmare of mudslides, fallen branches, and near-invisible paths. Twice Lucia lost her footing and slid several meters down the steep slope before managing to catch herself on exposed roots or rocks. By the time she reached the outskirts of San Cristobal, dawn was breaking. The storm had passed and Lucia was exhausted, bruised, and covered in mud. She made her way to the village church where Father Domingo was preparing for morning mass. The elderly priest was shocked by her appearance and condition. "Child, what has happened to you?" Lucia could barely speak through her chattering teeth. "Sister Isabella, experimenting on us, surgeries at night, must stop her." Father Domingo ushered her into the small room behind the altar, wrapping her in a blanket and stoking the fire. "Slow down, Lucia. What are you saying about Sister Isabella?" Through tears and trembling, Lucia told her story, the midnight surgeries, the hidden room of specimens, the disturbing journal entries, and finally, Sister Isabella's drugging of Sister Maria after she threatened to expose the experiments. Father Domingo's expression grew increasingly troubled as Lucia spoke. When she finally produced the journal and specimen jar from beneath her sodden dress, he examined them with growing horror. "These accusations are most serious," he said gravely. "If what you say is true, Sister Isabella has violated her sacred vows and committed acts that go against God's natural law." "You believe me?" Lucia asked, hope flickering through her exhaustion. "I believe you believe what you're saying," Father Domingo replied carefully. "But such extraordinary claims require investigation. These documents and specimens will need to be examined by appropriate authorities. There's no time, Lucia cried. Sister Isabella plans to operate on me next week. And what about Sister Maria? After what I saw last night, Father Domingo raised a calming hand. I understand your urgency. I will send a message to Bishop Montoya immediately. In the meantime, you will remain here under my protection. But Lucia's ordeal was far from over. By midday, Sister Isabella herself appeared at the church, accompanied by Mother Superior Agatha and 2 men from the village. Father Domingo, Sister Isabella called, her voice carrying into the priest's small study where Lucia was resting. One of our children has run away during the storm. We've been searching for her since dawn. Lucia clutched Father Domingo's arm in panic. Don't let her take me back, she whispered. The priest patted her hand reassuringly before going to meet the search party. Through the partially open door, Lucia could hear their conversation. Ah, Sister Isabella, I believe the child you're seeking is here. Thank God, Sister Isabella responded with convincing relief. We've been terribly worried. Lucia is troubled. She has been having disturbing dreams and delusions, Mother Superior interjected. Mother Superior, and I feared she might harm herself. Delusions? Father Domingo echoed. The child has always had a vivid imagination, Mother Superior Agatha continued. Recently, however, she has been making alarming claims about medical experiments and secret surgeries. Dr. Martinez believes she may be suffering from hysteria. Dr. Martinez examined her. Father Domingo asked. Just last week, Sister Isabella lied smoothly. He recommended close observation and possibly treatment at the hospital in Mexico City if her condition worsens. Lucia felt her heart sink. They had anticipated her escape. Prepared a story to discredit anything she might say. I see, Father Domingo said slowly. And Sister Maria, how does she fare this morning? There was a brief pause before Sister Isabella replied, Sister Maria has taken ill, I'm afraid. A sudden fever. I've administered medications, but she requires rest and isolation to prevent the spread of infection. How unfortunate, Father Domingo murmured. I should like to visit her to offer spiritual comfort. That would not be advisable at present, Mother Superior Agatha said quickly. The fever appears quite contagious. We wouldn't want to risk your health, Father. Your concern touches me, Father Domingo replied. Now, regarding young Lucia, she has shared some rather disturbing items with me. A journal and a specimen of some kind. She claims they come from your infirmary, Sister Isabella. Another pause, longer this time. Ah, Sister Isabella finally said, her voice betraying nothing. The child has taken my research journal and one of my teaching specimens. The journal contains notes on modern medical techniques I've been studying, perhaps incomprehensible to a child and thus misinterpreted. The specimen is a preserved animal organ I used to teach the older girls about anatomy and God's creation. You teach anatomy to orphan girls, one of the village men asked, sounding surprised. Knowledge of one's body is essential to maintaining health, Sister Isabella replied smoothly. Many of these girls will become mothers someday. Understanding how God has designed the female form helps them appreciate His wisdom. It was a plausible explanation, one that appealed to religious sensibilities while justifying the presence of anatomical specimens and detailed surgical notes. May I see this journal? Sister Isabella continued. It contains years of medical observations that would be difficult to replace. Lucia held her breath, praying Father Domingo would refuse. I believe I should retain these items for now, the priest said carefully. Until we can clarify the situation. Father Domingo, Mother Superior Agatha said, her tone hardening slightly. Santa Maria del Dolor operates under the direct authority of Bishop Montoya. Matters of discipline concerning our orphans fall under our jurisdiction, not the parish's. I am well aware of the ecclesiastical hierarchy, Father Domingo replied mildly. However, when a child appears at my door bearing evidence of potential wrongdoing and fearing for her safety, I have both a moral and legal obligation to investigate. The girl needs medical attention, Sister Isabella insisted. She is clearly delusional. Then perhaps Dr. Martinez should examine her here, Father Domingo suggested. I'm certain he could verify your diagnosis. Sister Isabella's voice cooled. Dr. Martinez is attending patients in Veracruz this week. He won't return for several days. How convenient, Father Domingo murmured so quietly that Lucia barely heard him. Then more loudly, Gentlemen, I thank you for your assistance in this matter, but I believe Lucia should remain here until Bishop Montoya can be consulted. This is highly irregular, Mother Superior Agatha protested. Nevertheless, it is my decision, Father Domingo said firmly. I will send for the bishop immediately. Until then, Lucia remains under the protection of the church. The men from the village, clearly uncomfortable with the tension between the religious figures, mumbled awkward farewells and departed. Mother Superior Agatha made one final attempt to persuade Father Domingo, but eventually left with Sister Isabella, who remained ominously silent. Once they were gone, Lucia collapsed in relief. They're lying about everything, she told Father Domingo. About me, about Sister Maria, about the journal. I suspected as much, the priest said grimly. The Mother Superior seemed genuinely distressed. But Sister Isabella? He shook his head. There is something unnatural in her composure. Father Domingo dispatched a messenger to Bishop Montoya that afternoon, but the bishop's residence was 3 days the journey away. Until help arrived, Lucia remained in the church, sleeping in a small room normally used by visiting clergy and helping Father Domingo with simple tasks. 2 nights later, disaster struck. Lucia was awakened by the smell of smoke and the sound of crackling flames. The church was on fire. She scrambled from her bed to find Father Domingo already in the main sanctuary, frantically trying to save sacred objects from the advancing flames. Lucia, he shouted when he saw her. Get out the back door. What about you? She cried. I must save the blessed sacrament. Go. Lucia ran to the back door as instructed, only to find it wouldn't open. Something heavy had been placed against it from the outside. The windows were too narrow for escape. Turning back, she saw Father Domingo struggling with the tabernacle as flames consumed the altar cloth. The door is blocked, she shouted. Father Domingo abandoned the tabernacle and rushed to her side, throwing his weight against the door without success. The front entrance, he gasped, coughing as smoke filled the sanctuary. They stumbled through the thickening smoke toward the main doors. Father Domingo reached them first and pulled the handles. Locked, he said in disbelief. From the outside. The horrible truth dawned on them both at once. This was no accident. Someone had deliberately trapped them inside the burning church. As flames climbed the wooden support beams and smoke made breathing increasingly difficult, Father Domingo led Lucia to the confessional booth. Listen carefully, he wheezed, pressing Sister Isabella's journal and the specimen jar into her hands. There is a small window in the priest's side of the confessional. It may be large enough for you to squeeze through. What about you? Lucia asked, though she already knew the answer. The window was indeed small, too small for an adult. I am in God's hands now, Father Domingo said, making the sign of the cross. You must survive to expose what Sister Isabella has done. Promise me. I promise. Lucia sobbed as he helped her into the confessional and showed her the window high on the wall. With Father Domingo's assistance, Lucia managed to wriggle through the narrow opening, clutching the precious evidence to her chest. She dropped painfully to the ground outside just as the church roof began to collapse. Father Domingo, she screamed, but there was no response, only the roar of flames consuming the small stone church. Villagers were now emerging from their homes, drawn by the fire and Lucia's cries. As they organized a bucket brigade from the nearby well, Lucia searched the crowd frantically, fearing she would see Sister Isabella watching from the shadows. Instead, she spotted a familiar figure on the road leading back to the orphanage, Sister Maria, moving with unnatural stiffness, but very much alive, being guided by 2 other nuns. Without hesitation, Lucia ran to the village's most respected elder, Don Alonso. Please, she begged, thrusting the journal and specimen jar at him. "Keep these safe. Don't let anyone from the orphanage take them. Lives depend on it." The old man, confused but seeing her desperation, nodded and concealed the items in his coat. "What is happening, child?" "Sister Isabella tried to kill me," Lucia said, her voice breaking. "I think she killed Father Domingo. Please, we need help." Don Alonso looked from Lucia to the burning church where villagers were fighting a losing battle against the flames. His weathered face hardened as he made a decision. "Miguel," he called to a young man organizing the bucket line. "Ride to San Juan and bring back the Federals. Tell them there has been a murder." As the young man mounted his horse and galloped away, Don Alonso turned back to Lucia. "Now, child, tell me everything." Over the next few hours, as the church burned to the ground and the villagers recovered Father Domingo's body from the ruins, Lucia recounted her story once more. This time, with the physical evidence to support her claims and the suspicious church fire lending credibility to her fears, the village elders listened. By dawn, a group of men armed with farming tools had positioned themselves around Don Alonso's home, where Lucia had been taken for safety. They were prepared to defend the girl against any attempt to reclaim her. Their vigilance proved necessary. As morning light spread across the valley, Sister Isabella herself appeared in the village square, accompanied by Mother Superior Agatha and 2 other nuns. "We've come for Lucia," Sister Isabella announced to the gathered villagers. "The poor child is unwell and requires treatment." Don Alonso stepped forward, his ancient rifle in hand. "She stays with us, sister, until the authorities arrive." "This is a church matter," Mother Superior Agatha insisted. "The child is under our guardianship." "Not anymore," Don Alonso replied firmly. "Not after what happened to Father Domingo." Sister Isabella's expression remained impassive, but her eyes flashed dangerously. "Are you suggesting we had something to do with the tragic fire?" "That was clearly an accident. Perhaps a candle left burning." Both doors locked from the outside, one of the villagers challenged. "That's no accident." "The girl has been filling your heads with fantasies," Sister Isabella said dismissively. "She is mentally disturbed and requires specialized care." From the doorway of Don Alonso's home, Lucia called out, "What about Sister Maria? What did you do to her?" All eyes turned to Sister Maria, who stood slightly behind the others, her face blank and her movements oddly mechanical. "Sister Maria has been ill," Mother Superior Agatha explained. "She is still recovering." "Sister Maria," Lucia called directly to the young nun. "Tell them what Sister Isabella does in the infirmary at night. Tell them about the surgeries." Sister Maria's vacant expression didn't change. When she spoke, her voice was flat and monotonous. "I don't know what the child means." "Sister Isabella cares for the sick with God's blessing." "That's not Sister Maria," Lucia said horrified. "Not anymore." "What did you do to her brain, Sister Isabella?" A murmur ran through the crowd as people noticed Sister Maria's unnatural demeanor. Sister Isabella's composure finally cracked, her face contorting with anger. "You ignorant peasants," she hissed. "You have no conception of the work I'm doing, the advancements I'm making. Those children were nothing before I came. Unwanted, imperfect creatures destined for lives of servitude and suffering. I am transforming them into something superior. By cutting them open in the night." Don Alonso demanded. "By experimenting on orphans who have no one to protect them." "My work requires subjects," Sister Isabella said coldly. "These procedures will revolutionize medicine once they are perfected. A few sacrifices are